Hello and welcome to Legal Bites. If you're new here, my name is Alita. I'm a lawyer licensed in California and DC, and on this channel, we explain the law one bite at a time. We don't give legal advice, but we do talk about how the law works and try to look into our crystal ball to see how things might turn out. If you're enjoying this on YouTube, we'd love it if you could like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with friends, all the great YouTube-y stuff. And if you want to listen while out and about, we're now offering our live streams in podcast form where you can leave a rating and review. Links are in the description below, as well as to our clips channel where you can find some of the best clips taken from our live streams. Otherwise, if you want to catch me elsewhere, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And if you want to support the channel, you can do so on Locals, Patreon, or by becoming a YouTube member, or by buying some really awesome Legal Bites merch. Again, all links are in the description below. And with that said, let's get into it. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hello, everybody. How are you doing? I hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful Tuesday wherever you are. So far, mine's been pretty good. Let me go through and say hi to some folks in the chat here. I was already pulling up some good mornings and good afternoons during that intro, but let's see where people are coming from. Let's see, Laura from UK, love it, and yes, you did spell it correctly. So no worries if you don't. I know it's not a very typical name, so but kudos, you got it right. Crystal M, hi from Augusta, Maine. We've got Terry Holcomb from West Virginia. Nico Persianian. I'm so sorry. Persianian from Finland. I'm so sorry. Tracy from Grafton, New York. Let's see. We've got also Madeline Personston from Sweden. We've got, let's see, who else here? We've got Ginger Haynes from Alabama, Kit Kat 8080 from Wales. And Mantha Johnny's talking about the Montreal weather. Awesome. B from Germany. Love it. Carolyn's reading Ramblings. Oh, watching from Virginia. You never catch a live. I'm happy to have you here for sure. Marzi from Zurich. Love it. Bratty Brat from Jax, Florida. I love it. Janice Frillman from Oklahoma. Then we got Kelly Marie from Madison, Wisconsin. I have a friend who used to live in Madison, Wisconsin. She loved it. She loved living there. So I'm hoping, I hope you enjoy living there too. Merciless Base talking about Missouri is at 25 degrees. We're heading into fall and winter territory, right? I've already been hearing about snow in some parts, which is just wild. So, yeah, sorry, Nico. Same, right? Like I mean, admittedly, my name's not very common. So, but I do try to get it right when I can. Has 01 from Alberta, Canada. Paula Lamely from Ohio. Jazzy B from Scotland. Oh, love it. I'll get a couple more here. Marianne Williams from Vegas. Chris Dodd from Western North Carolina. Irish Whiskey also from North Carolina. And Gina D from Boca Raton. Lisa White from Alabama. Love it. Okay. So this has been already a great day, morning. I was going to say great morning, but morning, afternoon, whatever. But I think that we've got some really, really interesting topics to get into. Before I do, you guys may have been watching yesterday during the first installment of Classic Trials on this channel. So this is going to be a long-term series that on Mondays, this is the plan that unless things happen like holidays or something like that, where, we have to sort of take something off a schedule or I'm traveling or something like that. Generally speaking, Mondays at noon are going to be Classic Trials. And so we're going to be keeping with Legal Tea Tuesday. We're going to keep with latest in the law on Thursdays. And I've updated all the banners so that you guys can see we've got a whole week-long schedule now. So from Monday through Friday is the one that's going to be just for Bite Club members. So if you are a member through YouTube memberships or a supporter on Locals or supporter on Patreon, you will have access to those live streams, both while they're live and for a replay if you can't catch them during the live. So yeah, that'll be some good stuff. I'm very excited. And Bite Club members this last Friday got to get a preview of tomorrow's deep dive, which is I'm going to be getting into Scientology again. I'm probably going to do maybe a little bit more in depth, maybe a little bit more, a little bit deeper stuff, maybe getting into some more topics or something about that. But I found it to be so fascinating. Some of the stuff that we were sort of uncovering as we were just sort of casually going through some stuff about Scientology that we were kind of going through together. And speaking of which, Joss Girl, thanks so much for the super chat. Says you should get Tony Ortega on your show for daily updates from the court. He has been reporting on Scientology for years. That's such a fantastic idea. I know he's been in the courtroom, and I remember I actually had previously mistaken him as a former Scientologist, but I guess he's just been reporting on it. So yes, I remember Aaron from growing up in Scientology uh, said that the that he had told me about Tony Ortega covering it. So I'm going to make a note to reach out to him finally, because that's something that I really should do, to get some daily updates. But we will be talking about the Masterson case today as well. There's a little bit going on. I think that trial might be starting in substance today, so that'll be an interesting thing to watch that develop. But there's still some stuff to go through and talking about what happened with jury selection, some things here and there. So that'll be really, really good. But thanks so much for the recommendation, Joss Girl. I really appreciate that. And thanks so much for the super chat as well. Now, before we get into the topics that are like the main topics here, I wanted to touch on something that is admittedly very, very, very sensitive. So I want to be very careful about how I talk about this. Over the weekend, you guys may have heard about it on Twitter or elsewhere on social media. There is a Twitch streamer who goes by the name Amouranth, who came out with some very, very, very serious allegations, and it kind of like messily sort of just came out during a live stream, where she revealed that she has a husband, and she says that he was abusing her, controlling her bank accounts, controlling her social media profiles, all kinds of stuff. And so there's a lot that has been talked about with her, and Secret Mix Girl, I see you in the chat. Yeah, there has been an update about that whole situation too, but I wanted to just touch a little bit on it because I think that although it's a very, very sensitive subject, it's a very important one too. And just so that you guys have a visual, I'm going to pull up an article. I won't be going through it in substance, but this is basically the update on her situation, where she came out with another live stream where she says that basically they are separating, at least for a certain amount of time. She is seeking legal and emotional counsel. He is seeking help for, his issues, I suppose. So in the original footage that kind of came out, most people, I think, heard about it on Twitter in a series of tweets that were sort of spliced together. In it, she showed, and I'm not going to go through like the actual footage itself. You can find it elsewhere, but I'll basically sort of summarize things for you guys. But basically, she had a conversation while on stream over speakerphone with someone who sounded like it was her husband. That was the what it looked like, at least. And the things that were being said were enough to make anybody bristle. Like, she was asking why he was threatening to kill her dogs, and asking, and she was just very, very visibly shaken, crying, all this kind of stuff. And he was yelling at her in a very, very intense way. Now, based on what she does for a living, like I said, she's a Twitch streamer. She also is an OnlyFans star, and she is like one of the bigger names on Twitch and OnlyFans. And no one knew previously, I guess, that she was married. So it was kind of like this hidden thing. And this was just like a sudden, like, revelation that A, she was married, and B, she says that she was being abused in the marriage. Now, based on what she does for a living and based on some of her history, because I understand that she has been involved in some sort of controversies in the past. I don't know exactly what those are because I don't follow her. I've never watched any of her content on any of her, social media platforms, accounts, what have you. Um, and based on the way that that news was presented to the masses, um, and on top of that, now, like based on how quickly it's been resolved, I think that there are people that are having a number of very strong reactions to the whole thing. And much of it is very emotional. So you've got people that are, very strongly in her corner and people that are saying this is all a hoax, this is all fake and all this kind of stuff. I am not going to get into, any kind of an investigation as to whether or not these allegations are real or not. I think that if there is information that becomes public, that can be something that could potentially be talked about later. But I'm not saying that I necessarily would pick it up, but the reason why I wanted to talk about that is to say that, I want to make it very clear that the kind of yelling that you see in those clips is a form of abuse, and it is not okay. The only question I think is what kind of information is missing from the whole bigger picture that would give more context. Does it confirm what it looks like, or does it change how things appear? A- All anyone could really do is speculate until information kind of comes out over time about that whole thing. And with all of that said, I think that the biggest reason why I wanted to talk about it is to say that if there is anyone that is in a situation that is a DV situation where they are being coerced, they are being controlled, they are being, in various ways held in the relationship against their will, all kinds of things like what that whole situation looks like, I have linked in the description below information, linked to websites for DV hotlines, as well as phone numbers and ways to text for that if people are in a DV situation and they are worried about their other significant other monitoring their digital activity, what have you. So that information is just in there. I felt like it was important to just kind of have that as a reminder with all of these conversations that are happening around this whole thing. And if you guys want a more lengthy, sort of nuanced and sensitive discussion on this topic, Ian and Rob did a fantastic job on Ian's channel yesterday on it. And I totally meant to link in the description as well for that. I totally forgot, but I will put that in the description as well. If you guys want something like that, they did a beautiful job of really digging into that and treating it with the sensitivity that a subject like this requires. So anyway, that's what I wanted to say about that. I just wanted to have like just a very quick word on that. So all right, with all of that said, let's move into some of the topics that we've got for headlines here. All right, so let me pull this up here. And yeah, I see this. Yeah, please check out Ian and Rob's takes. It's a very respectful one. Has a one. It was such a good stream, really respectful and supportive. Yeah, completely echo all of that. All of that. Yeah. So, okay, let's start off with Anne Heche. So Anne Heche has she's an actress that passed away last month, right? In September. And now this is an interesting thing that happens whenever you hear about a sudden celebrity death is oftentimes it doesn't take too long before you start to hear or you start to see articles coming out about a fight happening over the estate. And this is like really some of the stuff that I have spent quite a bit of time working on is trust in estates, families fighting over estates and all that kind of stuff. Um, and so I wanted to talk about this a little bit because number one, it's interesting to see some of the information that has come out. But number two, there is, it does sadden me to see this kind of fighting within family. Sometimes when you have certain tensions that surround a certain person throughout their life, um, once they die and once there's any sort of um, money involved, money, assets, anything, resources, what have you, people will very quickly start to air those grievances in that forum. Basically, like things will very very quickly show up that there is a lot of angst in that family and between these various relationships that people will have had over time. So you know, so let's get into this article here about Anne Heche and the battle that is happening right now in her family. So Anne Heche's estate estimated to be $400,000 as ex-boyfriend and son set to battle over it. Now, when we say $400,000, yes, to any individual that seems like a good decent amount, but realistically, when we are talking about um, any kind of estate where you have multiple beneficiaries and where the beneficiaries are fighting, that is a number that can dwindle very, very quickly. And on top of that, we are talking about a situation where the way in which she died was she crashed her car into someone's home. So there also is some other kind of a lawsuit that inevitably is either has been filed or will be filed so that that issue can also be resolved. So $400,000 now could very quickly dwindle into basically nothing here. And this is one of the things that also can be very very sad is that when people are fighting in a family because they're grieving the loss of a loved one or a former loved one, if this is an ex-boyfriend here that's involved, um you know already they're grieving, and then on top of that they are trying to figure out who gets what. It seems like a very trivial or shallow kind of question, but a lot of times people have a very strong emotional connection to the things that their loved ones had, right? It becomes not just a fight about the money, but it's a fight you know about Anne Heche, right? It's about mom, or it's about the ex-girlfriend or the mother of a child. And it becomes very representative of the love that is or should have been there between these various people. So let's go through it. Anne Heche died with about $400,000 to her name, according to new court documents, as her ex-boyfriend and adult son are set to duke it out over her estate. The 6 Days, 7 Nights actress ex-boyfriend James Tupper appeared in Los Angeles court Tuesday, where a judge shot down his bid to be appointed guardian ad litem of the 13-year-old son, Atlas Tupper, he shared with Heche. Okay, so just so that you guys know, what is a guardian ad litem? Guardian ad litem is basically where you have a minor that is involved in. I mean, in this kind of context, you can have it in a divorce context as well. But we're talking about obviously trust and estates, but where you have a minor who has an interest in the estate. And so here, I think it's James's son. Yeah, 13-year-old son, Atlas Tupper. So there's a 13-year-old plus Anne Heche has an adult son. And so there are multiple people who would take from the estate, right? So far we haven't read anything about whether there's a will or a trust or anything there. But if there is no will, the California probate code would state that if Anne died unmarried and she had 2 kids, that should be, generally speaking, I mean, unless there are some other factors that get involved, the default usually is going to be that would be shared half and half between the kids, probably after whatever liability money is taken out from the car accident where she died. Now, so the thing about that is, because the 13-year-old is a minor, he can't represent himself. Even like hiring a lawyer for himself is something that has all kinds of pitfalls. So what the court does is whenever you have a minor involved in a case like this, they will appoint a guardian ad litem. So they will appoint an attorney that is going to be unbiased, impartial. That's not the same attorney that represents, uh, the son's father, right? The ex-boyfriend here. That's his name is James, or the older brother who is an adult. So, and the reason for that is now it looks like James was attempting to be appointed the guardian ad litem for his son. And it would seem that that would be appropriate, right? To be like, well, why can't he just represent his own son? Like he has custody and all manners of his son. And he would have every interest in taking care of his son. Well, the reason for that is he also could have an interest in the estate for himself. And that could create a conflict of interest between James representing to the court for himself, for his own behalf, and then also representing to the court on behalf of his son. So you also can unfortunately see situations where you have some other like ex-lover that shares a child with someone who has a lot of money that wants to get very, very, very involved and get the max amount of money for their child out of the estate. And then the child ends up getting nothing because the parent ends up controlling all of that money and doing all kinds of crazy stuff with it and using it for themselves when actually technically they aren't the ones that own all of that money. So yeah, exactly. Terry Holcomb in the chat, that's exactly, it's a conflict of interest that could arise. So that's why the court would appoint a neutral guardian ad litem for the minor child that wouldn't be James. So back to the article. James has been locked in a contentious battle with Heche's eldest son, Homer LaFoon, over control of her estate following her August 12th death, arguing that he is the person with the highest priority of appointment. But Judge Lee R. Bogdanoff reminded James's lawyer, Christopher Johnson, on Tuesday, "We're not here to pick like the best person. I'm here to decide if LaFoon's qualified or disqualified." And that probably is because Homer was probably the one who was the first to apply, essentially to apply to be the executor of the estate, to say, look, I'm going to be the one to manage everything, because oftentimes the courts will give priority to the first person to show up. So so basically what that part is about who is going to be organizing the distribution of funds through the probate process for Anne Heche's estate. So like not going to be like who's going to own everything, who's going to control everything, but who's going to basically marshal that whole process to make sure that everything gets to where it needs to go. Obviously, you want someone who's going to be responsible. You want someone who's not going to be who's not going to be taking, all kinds of they're not going to be, treating themselves first and not helping others. But that was not very artful the way that I put that. But basically, like, they still have the executor, even if it is somebody who has an interest in the estate, the executor still has a lot of responsibilities, a lot of duties that they have to fulfill in order to not get sued by one of the other beneficiaries along the way. So basically, this sounds about correct from my experience, where the judge is just saying, like, I don't care if James is a technically better qualified person to be the executive or the executor of the estate here than Homer. Most likely Homer applied first, and the question is whether Homer is a good enough person to manage it. But Judge Lee R. Bogdanoff reminded James, here that we're not, okay, that we're deciding if LaFoon's qualified or disqualified. James shook his head, which infuriated the judge. Yeah, sometimes that's enough to piss off a probate judge. I know. Why are you shaking your head? Bogdanoff asked. It's very disrespectful. Don't shake your head at me ever if you're going to appear again. Please take your hands out of your pockets, sir. You want to say something? That's a judge that's pissed. And the judge, you can decide whether you like that or not. No one likes to see somebody get all ruffled and to like basically dress down someone in court, but it's this judge's courtroom. Realistically, this is what happens. James replied, "Sure, I don't feel that his older brother is going to look out for him. We've waited 2 months to get into the apartment." Tupper went on to claim that his son has not been allowed to obtain his belongings that are still at Heche's apartment. During the 15-minute hearing, the jurist noted that Heche's estate, the value of which was revealed in court papers filed earlier this month, would be evenly divided between Atlas and LaFoon. So that makes about, yeah, that's exactly what I said before about what was likely to happen. LaFoon was named temporary administrator to her estate on September 22nd. Heche died as a result of a fiery August 5th car crash that left her in a coma with severe burns. James and Heche dated for 11 years and shared custody of Atlas, who also appeared in court Tuesday. "We are pleased but not surprised with the court's ruling this morning denying James's petition to appoint himself guardian ad litem for Atlas," LaFoon's lawyer Brian Phipps said in a statement to Fox News Digital. "We look forward to the court resolving Homer's petition at the next hearing, and in the meantime, Homer will continue to diligently administer the estate pursuant to his authority as special administrator." In documents obtained by the Post, LaFoon said his mother's estate consisted of a few modest bank accounts, royalty payments and other income, a corporation that she used to develop various projects, and tangible personal property of unknown value. LaFoon said he expects the estate could receive another $400,000 from royalties, residuals, and future profits from Heche's posthumous memoir called Call Me Anne, which is set to be released in January 2023. LaFoon also said his mother lived in an apartment and did not own a home at the time of her death, according to the affidavit. The eldest son remains the temporary special administrator of Heche's estate at least until the next hearing on November 30th. The judge also told Tupper he could still file an objection by October 20th. So it looks like there's $400,000 in the estate right now, but that number still could change. It could grow even because of the fact that they have her memoir that is supposed to be coming out in a few months. And there also could be residuals and other things like that could be coming into the estate that could help to continue to fund this estate. But it's just overall, these kinds of cases they are sad. They are sad, but it looks to me like this is probably a little bit less messy than what it might look like based on the fact that you have a fight between the ex-boyfriend and the adult son here. Probably what is going to happen, and it sounds like if the judge has basically determined that things are 50-50. I don't know. I don't get anything here from this article, at least, that makes it sound like there actually was a trust involved here, which means things are going to be probably going through the probate court, which makes things very, very public. So anyway, I don't know what you guys think about this particular case, but it's sad. It's sad, but it is a common story. I will say that. One time, thanks so much for your super chat. It says, question, longtime watcher, first time commenter. Well, awesome. I'm glad that you've been watching for a while, and thanks so much for commenting and super chatting. Not relevant, but do you watch the content that you make? Love your videos. No, no, I don't like to. I actually really hate watching myself. Mr. Bites loves to tease me by playing some of my stuff, like at the end of the day when I'm like getting ready to like go to bed or whatever. He'll do that. And sometimes, I mean, because he genuinely wants to watch and see how I'm doing and all that kind of stuff, and support and all that. But at the same time, he also sometimes does it to tease me because he knows that I can't stand watching myself. But there are good things to also watching and evaluating your performance over time. So sometimes it is kind of necessary. But yeah, thanks so much for the super chat. And there is another question here. Paula Lamely says, aren't they limited on doing anything until it goes through probate? So it depends. It depends on what exactly it is that they're looking to do, because certain payouts can be made over time if it looks like there's enough in the estate for various expenses and whatnot, because one of usually the process that it is that it has to follow certain process, meaning that they've got to first collect all of the bills and everything that she had over time, monthly bills, utilities, all this kind of stuff, any kind of expenses that she had, credit card bills that are coming in. They've got to like collect all of that and make sure that they've got all of the information for that, for all of the stuff that needs to be paid off. Then they're going to make those payments. They've got to make payments on taxes. They've got to make payments to attorneys, to accountants, all this kind of stuff. And then usually after all of those expenses are paid out, that's usually when distributions will be made to beneficiaries. But, smaller distributions can be made over time if they've done calculations and they figure, okay, we're going to have enough here for, for the end of the administration. So we can reasonably be certain that like this isn't going to put anyone in a weird spot for this. So yeah, Terry Holcomb, doesn't the person's house she hit get first? That would be part of the expenses that would need to be paid out first, right? Because that's all of the liabilities of the estate, right? That would be considered one of them. Like, so they would have an interest in the estate because they would have an interest in getting paid from the estate to get to resolve the legal issue involved there. So yeah, Lisa White, doesn't sound like much will be left. That could very well be. But that unfortunately is a common thing that happens in these kinds of cases. So, there might be a little bit, but realistically, who knows? So, all right. Well, let's see here. Okay. That basically does it for that. Now, let me turn to the next one, which is, this one's going to be interesting. We're going to have some thoughts on this one. Okay. So we have a, sorry, I'm taking down timestamps so that I can hopefully get these in right after we're finished with the live stream. So this is written by one of our favorite social media journalists. I feel like we've got two favorites right now, right? We've got Taylor Lorenz and we've got Kat Tenbarge. We recently talked about one recent article by Taylor Lorenz. Now we've got one by Kat Tenbarge. We'll see. Let's go through it and see what we think. I haven't really gone through it. I know that some folks are talking about it, so we're gonna kind of like react to it as we go along through it. So, all right, let's go. Angelina Jolie is, you know what? Let me make this bigger. I'll make myself smaller. Okay. Angelina Jolie is the latest woman to be compared to Amber Heard by social media creators chasing celebrity scandal. The online obsession with the Depp v. Heard trial inspired a new genre of video content comparing Heard to other women who speak out. So already we've got some angling here in this title and the subtitle, right? Because we're talking about other women who speak out. Is it women who speak out, or is it women who lie when they're speaking out? Right? That's another thing here, right? So we're gonna go through and we're gonna see, is there some angling going on here throughout this article? Is there some editorializing here that is kind of being snuck in? Let's go through and see if we can detect some things. Okay. So this is from yesterday. After a legal filing brought forward new details of abuse allegations made by Angelina Jolie against her ex-husband Brad Pitt, Jolie has become the latest celebrity woman to face online attacks in the form of comparison to actor Amber Heard, according to a review of online videos and comments about Jolie conducted by NBC News. The accounts targeting Jolie are part of what a domestic violence researcher and an instructor in unconscious bias say is a trend of misogynistic stereotypes aimed at high-profile woman accusers. Hang on. Are you going to name this person? this domestic violence researcher and instructor in unconscious bias. I'm like trying to scan forward a little bit to see if maybe there's a name, but I don't. Okay. Who is this person? How can we evaluate what it is that they're saying? As previously reported by NBC News, those who post videos attacking Heard are incentivized by the thousands to millions of views they receive on social media and the money that can often follow that. Of course, people are doing it for the money. All the people who are talking about the Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard trial are just motivated by money. Never mind. This is one of my favorite attacks, by the way, by the mainstream media is when they talk about how people on social media are talking about these very subjects because we're doing it for the clicks and this and the super chats and the ad revenue, right? Never mind the fact that they themselves get paid for what they write. Right? Like they get paid. They get paid. They don't like Kat Tenbarge doesn't live off of air and sunshine, y'all. She doesn't. She gets paid for the things that she writes. And she gets paid, to go down certain avenues, right? Because at the end of the day, social media is doing the same thing that MSM is to a certain extent. They are looking for readers. Readers want to read certain topics, right? Because if we put out content that no one wants to watch, people will not click on the video and they won't watch it, right? Same thing happens with the mainstream media. If people don't want to read these articles, they won't. So this is why these kind of topics keep coming up. So, if it's like you can also turn it right back on Kat Tenbarge here and say, why are you talking about Amber Heard? What like you're just eliciting more people to come in and comment on these things to talk about that. I haven't talked about Amber Heard in how long? I can't remember. Like I've been so focused on these other cases that have come up that have been fresh. Even though there's been some new information on appeals and all that kind of stuff, I haven't really caught up much with what Amber Heard and Johnny Depp have been doing in those. And I know that other people have been covering it. So I've just basically been like, yeah, okay, we've got other things that are going on. But now that this is sort of blending with the other topics that I am talking about, um, you know, now we're talking about it. Now we're talking about it. So okay. But of course, we're making money on it, right? We're making the Amber Heard bucks. So therefore, what we're saying is false and wrong and all this kind of stuff. Heard's legal battle and trial with her ex-husband, actor Johnny Depp, sparked its own wave of social media content that not only shamed and mocked Heard, but included false allegations about her and viral clips from the trial taken out of context. What are you talking about? What I Okay. So shaming and mocking, yeah, of course, there was that fair share of that. I would say the vast majority of people got involved in shaming and mocking Amber Heard. Um, it's hard not to do that when you have trial testimony that comes out where she literally took a dump on her husband's bed for him to find and then blamed it on a small Yorkie. It's just like when things like that come out, it's really hard not to. But also false allegations about her. What kind of false allegations? What are we talking about? What kind of examples is she going to give here? Is she going to give any examples or is she just going to have us take her word for it? Viral clips from the trial taken out of context. You talking about like when she talks about her dog stepped on a bee? Because that was something that was a non sequitur and didn't really make sense in the context of the rest of her testimony. So I've already got some issues here. I'm trying not to get too worked up. I don't know if I'm doing a good job of that, but here we go. All right. Now, social media creators and audiences are comparing Jolie to Heard, as evidenced by hundreds of comments NBC News found on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube that questioned her allegations of abuse. Representatives for Jolie and Pitt didn't respond to NBC News requests for comment. So, are we not allowed to question allegations of abuse? Are we not allowed to? This is something that is very important for us to really talk about, is the fact that somebody makes allegations. We have all found in through the trial process that we all got to watch ourselves. I think it's been widely agreed upon, other than a handful of people like Kat Tenbarge, right? And Eve Barlow and some other people and Christopher Boozy and whatnot. It has been widely viewed by the public, who has also agreed with the jury verdict, saying that her allegations were false. She made false allegations against Johnny Depp. And so that should bring into the public consciousness that there is a possibility that somebody makes allegations that those could be false. So we should be allowed to question allegations of abuse. Now, whether we dismiss them outright without looking at any evidence is another issue, right? I don't agree with that. I think that we definitely I will be the first person to say that I am exceedingly slow to come to a conclusion on all kinds of things, and sometimes it gets me into trouble, right? But um but questioning allegations is something that all of us should be able to do, whether those allegations are allegations of DV, or whether those allegations are allegations about defamation about those DV allegations. You know what I mean? Like, we should be allowed to look under the hood in these kinds of cases that are in the public, and where these allegations are playing out in the public, and to be able to examine them. Representatives for Jolie and Pitt didn't respond to NBC News request for comment. For Jolie, the attacks came after she filed a countersuit against Pitt on October 4th, alleging that he committed physical and emotional abuse of her and their children. In a counter complaint, Jolie described a violent 2016 ride on a private plane, during which she said Pitt choked one of the children and struck another in the face. She said the incident led to her filing for divorce days after the trip. Yeah, and we read through that. We read through the factual allegations of that counter complaint on this channel. And I will say, for someone who is a very vocal anti Amber Heard person, to me, Angelina Jolie's claims seem a bit different. You know, she has this was an incident that ostensibly has witnesses, right? They've got all of their children. Now, of course, their children could have varying relationships between her and Brad Pitt, so that can influence the way that they decide to talk about that incident. You know, they could have different kinds of loyalties to either of their parents, but regardless, you know, that to me is a different situation than Amber Heard, and we've talked about that. A representative for Pitt previously provided a statement to NBC News denying the allegations and saying Pitt won't own anything he didn't do in court. Fair. That's fair. He's entitled to make that stance. The civil suit at hand, filed by Pitt in February, is over Jolie's sale of her part of their French winery. But the abuse allegations made by Jolie in her countercomplaint are what have taken center stage online, where a years-long culture battle has been waged between hashtag #MeToo movement supporters and detractors. This is also, I think, a misleading distinction between the two sides in these various cases, because what has happened in the Amber Heard case, in the Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard case, is you did not have people. Well, okay. Let me backtrack a little bit. You had people on the Johnny Depp side who were anti hashtag #MeToo movement. Sure. You also had people who had believed in the Me Too movement, and for them, the Amber Heard case was one which really made things very topsy-turvy for those individuals, and said, you know, this movement has gone too far. We really are now trying to throw support behind people that shouldn't have their support thrown behind them. So this is a very misleading distinction between these two different groups of you know, who supports one side versus the other, because you have plenty of people who were in support of the woman who spoke out against Harvey Weinstein, who were in support of the women's gymnastics team who spoke out about the horrific things that happened to them um, during across many, many years. You have people that are very much in support of them that then turned to Amber Heard and said, you're not legitimately part of this movement. So, yeah, I have an issue with this. This year, that battle went mainstream, catching the attention of millions of viewers online during the civil trial involving Depp and Heard. That I will go to the ends of the earth and say that battle, as she characterizes it, is not accurate. Heard became an internet obsession during the Virginia jury trial, in which she was found liable for defaming Depp after she identified herself as a victim of domestic abuse in a 2018 op ed in the Washington Post. Heard was ordered to pay $10.3 million in damages. Depp was also found to have defamed Heard and was ordered to pay $2 million in damages. The decision was celebrated by legions of Depp fans and supporters, while victims advocacy organizations warned that it would have a chilling effect on survivors speaking up about abuse. Some victims advocacy groups, but I think that by and large, I don't know about you guys, but I was hearing from a ton of uh, of DV survivors saying that this gave them hope. So this is a very different perspective than what I have. But then again, I'm an online grifter, right? What do I know? Heard filed her grounds of appeal on Tuesday, citing a lack of clear and consistent evidence of actual malice and an inherently and irreconcilably inconsistent jury decision that each party had defamed the other. Okay, well, Depp also filed grounds of appeal, didn't he? I mean, I think so. Like I said, I haven't been following the appeal part as closely as I could. Maybe I should be. But I mean, he's also appealing. The Depp v. Heard trial was largely digested on social media, especially on such video platforms as TikTok and YouTube, which hosted creators who raked in views and hundreds of thousands of dollars by pivoting to pro-Depp, anti-Heard content. Oh no, is this the Taylor Lorenz article? Let me see here. Let me see. Sorry, I clicked on it and I'm looking at this other page. No, this is another one by Kat Tenbarge. Okay, so it's not the Taylor Lorenz one where they claimed that they reached out to me for comment and very much did not. All right. Anyway, but still, ah, I've got issue with the word pivot, right? Because how many of these actually did pivot? There were people that actually did, right? There were people that had, all kinds of content, like they were like gaming streamers and all kinds of people that are just like, that's not law, right? That's not trials. But when I was identified as somebody who had pivoted, I was like, excuse me. um I would like you to take maybe like 2 seconds to look at my channel and the just look at the thumbnails and the titles. Anyway, the things we saw, the memes, the clips of the trial, they were overwhelmingly going against Amber Heard. They overwhelmingly portrayed her as this femme fatale, as this untrustworthy individual. Adrian Lawrence, a media personality and former litigator, said. What media personality? For what? For where? Who is this person? I I'm okay. Interesting. Again, like this is citing to someone without showing their credentials other than like kind of like generically describing them is something that I have a problem with because we need to be able to evaluate these articles to determine whether or not we should trust it. Okay. Now, creators and audiences on social media are applying a similar lens to Jolie's allegations against Pitt and other women's allegations online. A similar lens. Okay. But similar means that there is some sort of a difference, right? So, how similar is similar, Miss Tenbarge? NBC News found 12 YouTube channels directly comparing Jolie with Heard in titles and thumbnails. The smallest channel to do so has slightly more than 5,000 subscribers, while the largest, a Spanish language pop culture channel, has more than 3.2 million subscribers. On average, the videos received more than 20,000 views each. Okay. That just means that there's interest in these topics. And by the way, she doesn't talk about how she characterizes the comparison between Angelina Jolie and Amber Heard. For example, if I were to say what I said in this title, Angelina Jolie is AH question mark, and if I change the title at some point later for YouTube algorithm metrics or whatever, I might change it. But at this point in time, at the time of recording right now for this live stream, I've got in there Angelina Jolie is AH question mark. And that's because there's this suggestion that Angelina Jolie is being compared to Amber Heard. But do I think that Angelina Jolie is Amber Heard 2.0? I have not said that. I have not said that. So, you can also say technically that the title of this video is comparing Angelina Jolie to Amber Heard, but without saying that I think that she is the next Amber Heard, without saying that I think that, or that I'm even suggesting that Angelina Jolie should have the same treatment as Amber Heard, right? There's a difference there. And so she's not being very precise in her language here by talking about directly comparing Jolie with Heard in titles and thumbnails. Some of the videos characterize Jolie as a liar in titles and thumbnails, while others ask whether she is using Amber Heard tactics or is the next Heard. Some of the YouTubers focused on the legal case, suggesting it could be the next Depp v. Heard. Yeah, that's legitimate. That is legitimate. That is something that is a-okay to do, because that is saying, look, public, we had this experience just now where we saw that there was an allegation that everybody believed right off the bat that was proved to be false, and it changed everybody's mind. Could this be the same thing? By asking that, by saying, could this be the same thing? That's not the same thing as saying this is the same thing, right? You can ask a question, and then the content of the video can be to investigate into that and to say, can we make a conclusion at this point? Can we? I don't know. But characterizing Jolie as a liar in the titles and thumbnails, there could be various aspects that people have different opinions of, right? I don't agree with coming to a very strong opinion right off the bat before, there's really any evidence, but you can also craft a title or a thumbnail that suggests that what you're saying is that she's being a liar, that she's lying about something, but that when you actually click through and you watch the substance of the video, the explanation could be that, you are not actually saying that, but that you are talking about the possibility of that being the case, right? For example, I could say, I could make a video that is titled I can make a video that's titled "Suing Kat Tenbarge." That could suggest to someone that I am actually suing Kat Tenbarge. The substance of that video could be, what would it be like to, what would be required to do so after an article like this, which wouldn't necessarily implicate actually suing her. If that makes any sense, right? Like you can draft these thumbnails and these titles in such a way that gets people's interest and gets them asking a question. And then you basically are indicating, you click on the video, you'll get the answer to that question. And by the way, I'm not suggesting that I'm going to sue Kat Tenbarge for anything. I don't have any reason to do so, but that's just an example, by the way. I just want to make that very clear. But I hope that point that I'm trying to make is clear, is that, you can have things that are suggestive in a certain way where the substance of the actual video is actually not what it seems like in the title or in the thumbnail. Whether that's right or wrong is a whole other discussion that can be had. Whether that's clickbaity, how far does that go before it becomes clickbait is a whole other question, right? Like we can totally talk about bait and switch kind of tactics for, newspaper articles, MSM articles, or, YouTube videos or what have you. All kinds of ways that can come about. So, and then also others asking whether she's using Amber Heard tactics or is the next Amber Heard, people are allowed to ask a question. People are allowed to ask a question. One channel called Just In has compared Heard and Jolie in the titles of at least 5 videos and previously appeared to post a job ad on the freelance website Upwork in August, Vice News reported, seeking a researcher to create content that goes against Amber Heard and supports Johnny Depp. NBC News viewed the listing, which has since been removed from Upwork. The channel, which has 269,000 subscribers and more than 350 million views, frequently posts videos with misleading or sensationalized statements. Now, I will say, I have seen videos made by Just In, and I do agree that I think that I do agree that I think that the content that I've seen coming out of Just In is not exactly uh the most accurate and forthright, I would say. So that one, she probably has a point on that. I will say that. In the past 24 hours, a video was posted with the title Gisele Bündchen finally reveals what Tom Brady did to cause the divorce, referring to the reported steps the celebrity couple has taken to potentially end their marriage. Despite the title's suggestion that Bündchen had issued a detailed statement, the only statement the video refers to from Bündchen is an emoji comment she left on a post from someone else about the nature of relationships. Yeah, I mean that's a little clickbaity in my opinion. But I mean, is that something that's going to be, anti Giselle Bundchen? Like, I mean, you can scroll past the title and say like, oh, like that's what's going on here. She's getting berated by YouTube videos. But if the substance of the actual video isn't doing that, I think that doesn't necessarily support what Kat Tenbarge is saying here. It just shows that these people are using clickbait tactics to get people to click on videos, which, is in my opinion, I don't like that. Another video posted in the past day says in the title that it shows Heard smiling when she asked about beating Johnny. In the actual video clip, Heard smiles after a paparazzi asks what she thinks about people who don't believe that Johnny beat you. The channel did not immediately respond to a request for comment. I love how they when they put this, they say did not immediately respond to a request for comment. That suggests to me that they basically probably sent out the request either by DM or by email or something, and then we're like, "Hey, do you have anything to say?" And then like 10 minutes later, we're like, "Well, didn't respond, so we'll move ahead with the article," without giving like an actual good faith ability to respond. I love it when they do that. I'm being sarcastic. According to Lawrence, who teaches courses in unconscious bias, Heard's treatment online was instructive to many people as to how other women can be treated in public. It was already thought that the Me Too movement was unfair to men, unfair to individuals who are being held accountable for their behavior, and having cases like Amber Heard's and the way it was treated in the public realm of social media and in the media, it creates more avenues to doubt women who come forward against powerful men, Lawrence said. Okay, but who's at fault for that? Right? That's a different question. And I don't think that Kat Tenbarge is going to agree with me on who I think is at fault for that. Is it social media that's at fault for the fact that Amber Heard has called into question the legitimacy of other people's claims when they come forward? No. It's the fault of the person who lied. Right? Like it's the same thing as when someone makes an improper 911 call, right? It's their fault that there are resources being allocated for things that aren't emergencies, right? It's not the fault of the state for not having more resources for these things. I mean, I guess there's a whole conversation that could be had about that perhaps. Maybe I'll go back on that a little bit. But at the end of the day, like somebody does something that is wrong, you can't blame the rest of the world for treating them poorly for doing that wrong thing. I mean, it was already thought that the Me Too movement was unfair to men. And we can talk about that. We can talk about why some people thought for a bit before this point that the Me Too movement was unfair to men. And that has to do with due process. People have, even though we're not necessarily in a legal system when we're talking about people making allegations and then they suddenly lose their job and then suddenly they lose like, their whole life. And they cannot provide for themselves because an allegation has been made against them. Even people still have a sense of due process in these kinds of circumstances, even if technically it isn't like a legal situation. Other women labeled Amber 2.0 range from government workers to relatively unknown assault victims. Former White House aide Cassidy Hutchinson was labeled Amber Heard 2.0, and the phrase trended on Twitter after she testified about former President Donald Trump's alleged actions during the January 6th Capitol attack. Hutchinson did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Now, I will say this, that there is an overuse of Amber 2.0, but what I mean, what does that do? In my opinion, I think that it actually just dilutes the power of that phrase, the power of calling someone an Amber Heard. If you see every single woman that is disliked by people, suddenly she's an Amber Heard 2.0. Other people see that and they have a difference of opinion. All that does is dilute the name calling, dilute the power of the name calling. All right. Defenders of singer Marilyn Manson, a close friend of Depp's, have referred to his ex-partner Evan Rachel Wood as Amber 2.0, or the sequel to Heard in YouTube videos, which one of which has 100,000 views. In 2021, Wood accused Manson, whose real name is Brian Warner, of R-ing and abuse throughout their relationship. Manson denies the allegations and is suing Wood for defamation in Los Angeles. And also just responding to the chat a little bit. I'm not attempting to justify using clickbait. I'm saying that is a different kind of conversation than I think that what Kat Tenbarge is arguing here. Because, you can have clickbait. It's basically it's I don't like clickbait is what I said earlier, and I'll say it again, but it's a different thing than having video after video after video be focused on propagating a narrative that someone is just like Amber Heard, which would eliminate people's need to do an analysis of a separate case. So I hope that clarifies that. Okay. Emma Katz, a UK domestic abuse researcher and author of Coercive Control in Children's and Mothers' Lives, said that the way high-profile women are treated when they come forward with accusations of abuse reflects how accusations made by non-celebrity women are received. I mean, I don't know. I'm open to that possibility, honestly. Survivors across our society, no matter whether they're wealthy or deprived, no matter who they are, they're still being viewed with a great deal of suspicion, said Katz. She went on to say that despite false allegations being rare, victims who make allegations of domestic and sexual violence and abuse are first judged on their credibility rather than the accused being judged on their history and propensity to commit violence. Well, this might be a controversial opinion, but somebody making an allegation, whether it's SA or anything else, should be evaluated for their credibility. That should be. Now how we go about evaluating that credibility can make a big difference, right? Because I mean, there's been a history of treatment of women in these kinds of cases and talking about, oh, her credibility is determined by how sexually active she is in real life. Because if she's, a total floozy and sleeps around, so to speak, not my words, but like the judgment in those times, if she sleeps around a lot, then therefore, in this case, she must have been more likely to have wanted it or have, consented to it. There have been ways of evaluating credibility in the past that have been absolutely wrong, but that doesn't go so far as to say that we should not be evaluating the credibility of people that are making allegations. They also should not be immune to all evaluations of credibility. Okay. Um Now, they're also saying rather than the accused being judged on their history and propensity to commit violence, well, that's getting to character evidence, right? Like the fact that somebody has done something in the past also doesn't mean that someone has done it in this instance. We I talked last week about how in California in criminal cases, it's the California rules of evidence are a little bit wonky in these kinds of criminal cases, because you are essentially allowed to bring in these other previous allegations and to use that to basically say, is it likely that this person did it on this instance? So like that's something that is very very interesting and very questionable in my opinion. But generally speaking, we are not supposed to judge someone based on the fact that they have done something in the past to just assume that they are going to continue doing that in the future. So I am disagreeing with what this expert is saying. This domestic abuse researcher is saying right now. For example, in Katz's opinion, Jolie has been judged on her wild child reputation from her youth, while Pitt is rarely judged on his willingness to work with now disgraced Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein on 2 movies, despite knowing about some of Weinstein's behavior. Okay, but if we are going to use that standard with saying that because Pitt was willing to work with Harvey Weinstein, number one, how much power did Harvey Weinstein have? And when are you talking about that he was willing to work with him? Was that okay? Pitt had said in 2019 that he had confronted Weinstein in 1995 over Weinstein's treatment of Gwyneth Paltrow, but Pitt continued to work with Weinstein on movies released in 2009 and 2012. Those are both before the Me Too movement when Weinstein had a lot of power. This was an unspoken open secret in Hollywood that Weinstein was doing these terrible things. So if we're going to have that standard of Brad Pitt, we should have that standard for literally every single person in Hollywood that worked with Weinstein, who, by the way, wielded a ton of power. He was like essentially a kingmaker, right? Like how many Oscar speeches were essentially required to thank him, right? And yeah, I see it in the chat. Oprah was a good friend of Harvey Weinstein too, and she also was a survivor of DV, familial R-ing, so to speak. I'm in real life, I'm able to use the word, guys, just so you know. I'm just trying not to trip up the YouTube algorithm. But like, Oprah Winfrey, who has talked a lot about her experiences as a child and how she ended up having a child when she was a child, and it was very 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 traumatic stuff that she went through, and yet she was willing to be friends with Harvey Weinstein, and she's had some interesting things that she said that she's sort of like maneuvered around conversation when he's been brought up in public conversation. So like, are we really going to use that to say that we should judge Brad Pitt, and that therefore Brad Pitt has definitely done the things that Angelina Jolie is saying that he did? I don't agree with that. That's not a good way of going about that. I am perfectly open to the possibility that maybe Angelina Jolie is correct in her allegations saying that Brad Pitt, grabbed her by the hair and slammed her against a wall. That is a possibility, because like I've said before, I was not there, so there's no way for me to know. I think that the likelihood of her being able to prove that is a bit higher than a lot of other cases, because like I said, her kids were there for it, and there were other people that were, that could possibly testify. I don't know if there were other people that worked on the plane, for example, that would have been around for that. That there's a possibility of proving that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I mean, just to say that, like, oh, just because Brad Pitt worked with Harvey Weinstein, therefore therefore we should be judging him for that. I don't know about that. I also will say that, Jolie's reputation as a wild child from her youth also doesn't mean that she's automatically lying about these things, right? So I don't think that any of these things would be a proper way to go about this, of figuring out what actually happened during their marriage. Although in some ways there's been some progress in making women more equal in society, the suspicion around women and their credibility and their trustworthiness, these things have never gone away in 2,000 years or more, and they're still so present in our responses to any high-profile woman who speaks out, Kat said. Okay, but like, also women can lie. Is this the end of it? Yeah, I think it's the end of it. So it seems like what they're suggesting here is that what you think women shouldn't be questioned? You think that women can't lie? You think that women are somehow more virtuous? That's not true. Women absolutely can lie. Men lie, women lie. It's something that happens. You know, I've seen it many times in litigation. I've caught women on lies during a deposition and what have you. So this is I the 2,000 years or more, whatever you want to say about that. This is something that is a possibility, and we absolutely should be able to question the allegations of anyone, man or woman, that comes out to the public. We should be able to question them and evaluate them. Don't dismiss them out of hand, because that goes against what I fundamentally believe in, which is that we need to listen and investigate. But listen and believe. It sounds like what they are trying to say here in this article, and I don't agree with that at all, not one bit. So, alrighty. Speaking of listening and investigating, alrighty, let's go to. All right, Danny Masterson. Okay, now that I've gone on my rant here, um, about cat. Oh, geez, what did I do here? Okay, I just clicked on something by accident. Okay, now that I've gone on my rant here about Kat Tenbarge and Amber Heard and all this kind of stuff, uh, let's take it down a notch again. Because we're gonna get into an even more serious topic. Alrighty. Okay, let's do this. Danny Masterson jurors are screened for bias against Scientology. Okay, so this is the next thing that's coming out about the Danny Masterson trial. It looks like, from what I've been seeing about this case, like I said at the beginning of this video, Danny Masterson is probably going to be starting the trial. The trial in substance will probably begin today in court. So I'm very, very curious to see more updates on this case, and we'll see. We'll see. What comes out, what different theories are going to come out from both sides in their opening statements. But I will be trying to keep a very close eye on it as well. Kevin Spacey also is in trial. That one came to a sudden halt when his attorney tested positive for COVID. So we'll see if that one is also going to be moving forward today. I need to check in on that, but maybe I'll put out some articles on that, some links to some stuff, to see if anybody's interested in an update on that. But otherwise, let's get into this one, because we're getting into this is a topic that we've kind of been touching on this channel quite a bit, because there's this. Danny Masterson is a member in good standing of the Church of Scientology. And again, when I say Church of Scientology, that is the official legal name of the organization as it appears on all legal documents. That is not me making a personal evaluation as to whether Scientology is a church or a cult or a secular organization or whatever. I just want to make that very, very clear, so nobody makes that mistake. Makes that mistake in reading me that way. So here, Scientology is going to be involved to a certain extent in this particular case. And so Scientology has a reputation, right? Everyone is aware of that. Danny Masterson is aware of that. His attorneys are aware of that. And so what they are saying is that they're trying to limit the amount of Scientology discussion in this case. The prosecution would love to have Scientology come in as much as possible because people have all kinds of opinions on it. But what they've been doing now in the last, however many days, is that they have been looking pretty closely at people's thoughts on Scientology uh, for the jury, right? Because even if they try to limit how much they talk about it, you still don't want anyone on the jury who is going to just immediately convict him on the basis of him being a member of the Church of Scientology. Now, folks that were here for the members only stream on Friday got a bit of a preview of sort of what we're going to be talking about tomorrow, deep diving into Scientology, kind of going through some of the stuff in there. And so I've got my own thoughts on the Church of Scientology. It is, I never want to disparage anyone's beliefs or belief systems, but I think that the organization as it conducts itself is something that is there are a lot of based on what we know, right? Because there's definitely a vacuum of information about Scientology. They're a notoriously private organization, very closely held. But it is the way in which that organization operates itself is definitely lends to a very strong possibility that people can be taken advantage of in a very strong way. So, even with that said, that's not a proper basis for convicting Danny Masterson, right? He should be convicted if there is enough evidence to convict him for the various charges that are leveled against him. So, so to the extent that Scientology is going to be coming in, we want to make sure that the jury is not going to be biased against him just because he's a member of the Church of Scientology. That is, like, regardless of how you are looking at this, I don't have an opinion one way or another on this case at this point. I've talked about how Harvey Weinstein, I do have a little bit of a bias against Harvey Weinstein based on how his first trial went. In New York, and based on all of the things that have come out about him, I think it's pretty overwhelmingly clear to me that he has done a whole lot of bad things. But as far as Danny Masterson is concerned, I'm pretty open, right? And even still with Harvey Weinstein, I want to make sure that the trial is we want it to be a good, clean fight, right? Because if somebody's going to be convicted, we want it to be done for the right reasons. We don't want to give any ability to or not ability, but we don't want to give people a reason to be appealing all of these kinds of things. So anyway, let's get into the article to see how they're going about it, or at least what the reporting is saying about how they're going about it, because there could be some missing pieces as always. All right. Attorneys are set to give opening statements in the Danny Masterson Aring trial on Tuesday, as a jury is expected to be chosen by mid-morning. Over the last week, the initial pool of 225 potential jurors has been narrowed to about 85. On Monday, the defense and the prosecution began to question the potential jurors in open court in what is called voir dire, after an initial round of screening from Judge Charlene Olmedo. And let me see here. There was... Okay. Sorry, I just want to make sure that I've got things saved for later. One of the key questions has been how much the potential jurors know about Scientology. Masterson is a Scientologist, and each of his three accusers was a Scientologist at the time of the alleged Aring. The accusers, now all ex-Scientologists, have said that they delayed going to the police out of concern that they could be excommunicated. At the outset of his questioning, defense attorney Philip Cohen emphasized that Scientology is not on trial. Scientology is not a party in the case, but you're going to hear about it, Cohen said. Whether you feel strongly about your religion or so strongly against other religions, that's going to be an issue. And that's absolutely correct. Without any sort of feeling of whether he should be convicted or not, that is absolutely correct. This should not be um, something that is used to convict him, right? Except for to explain certain circumstances for why certain things happened, right? It's going to be coming in because it gives context to the things that happened. But Scientology should not be the reason why he's convicted, if he is convicted at all. Over the last several days, numerous jurors have said that they have seen or read something about Scientology. By far, the most popular source of information was Scientology and the Aftermath, the A&E docuseries hosted by ex-Scientologist Leah Remini, a critic of the church. The 2-hour finale of that show in 2019 included a discussion of the Masterson case. Masterson's lawyers have argued that Remini is effectively a quote-unquote victim advocate for one of the accusers. Many of the jurors who said they watched the show have already been excused, though no reason was given for the removal. The jurors who are familiar with the church have not been asked to offer any details of what they have seen or read, so as not to taint the other jurors. One of them said he had read numerous articles about the church. Asked by the judge to say only whether the articles were positive or negative, he said, "I don't believe I've read a positive article about the organization." Now, that is probably true. Because the vast majority of the things that are written about Scientology are going to be negative, or they are written by the Church of Scientology, and usually those can kind of be sniffed out as basically propaganda. He was excused. Many jurors said they knew little or nothing about the church. A few identified Tom Cruise as a Scientologist, but knew nothing beyond that about church beliefs and practices. Some said they had only heard the name Scientology. "I've seen their majestic building," said one person. At least one person said she had read L. Ron Hubbard's Dianetics or a similar book, and others said they had seen ads promoting Scientology. A couple said they had seen TV ads in which LA mayoral candidate Rick Caruso attacks rival Karen Bass for appearing at a Scientology event. Only 2 jurors said they had ever met a Scientologist. One said he worked at a company in the 1990s where the owner and most of the staff were Scientologists. He said his coworkers didn't talk much about their religion. "I may have asked," the person said. "It was a long time ago." That person was excused. Yeah, because that's going to be for the prosecution. That probably was excused by the prosecution, because that would have been, I mean, or it could have been by the defense. Honestly, either one could have, because it's just too close to have uh to have memories of these individuals. Um he could have all kinds of different perceptions of Scientology based on his experiences with those people. So, defense could have also excused him by based on thinking like, well, he might have had there may have been reasons why he left that job, that he didn't like them, and that could influence. There are reasons like that could be at play too. Um, that person was excused, and another juror said that he had friends who had left the church and who had complaints about it. They considered it a traumatic experience. He said, "I know it's a restrictive organization." The juror said that it would be hard to put that aside and be fair. It appeared that that person had been excused by lunchtime on Monday. Yeah, that's definitely, as soon as you say that you are friends with someone who used to be in it and is a critic of it, yeah, I would be excusing that person as well. But the vast majority of the jurors said they could be fair to Masterson regardless of his religion. Addressing the jurors on Monday afternoon, Cohen called Scientology the elephant in the room. I mean, it very much is the elephant in the room. Does Mr. Masterson's former and current relationship and involvement and status as a Scientologist have any impact on how you view him with respect to the government's burden to prove the charges? Cohen said, "This is something I really need to know." No one raised their hand. The jurors were also asked for their feelings about the Me Too movement. One man expressed doubt about allegations from long ago. Why does it take so many years for someone to come forward? He asked. Another man who described himself as a feminist said he felt an inclination to support an accuser's testimony. I think a victim that has the courage to take the stand, there may be some element of truth, he said. Asked if he would be able to set aside his predisposition and follow the judge's instructions, he said, I think personally it would be difficult to do so. Cohen thanked him for his honesty. That is for dear, Cohen said. So that's the end of it. I mean, yeah, this is you really hope that people are going to be very open and honest about these kinds of things when they are in the process of jury selection. And if someone thinks that they're going to have a hard time, setting aside their predispositions like that, that's something that is going to be that's a good reason for them not to be on the jury. It's not to say that they're a bad person, but it's just a good reason for them not to be on this particular jury, because we need people that are going to be able to look at the case for the facts that are relevant and necessary to look at in order to evaluate whether or not he did the things that he's charged with doing. So, all right. So that's about it on that one. And I think that's really about it for all of these topics. This has been very, very interesting day. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've got a couple more things here. Let's see. Mantha Johnny has a question. I'm assuming neither have cameras for live viewing. Yeah, I think you're referring to Kevin Spacey and Danny Masterson. That's correct. Kevin Spacey is in federal court in New York. So federal court, generally speaking, we're not going to have any cameras in the courtroom really at all. And Danny Masterson, I think because of the nature of the allegations and the privacy of the alleged victims, I think that's the reason why they don't have cameras in the courtroom. I think, but yeah. So yeah, no cameras in the courtroom for either one of these. Otherwise, I would totally be live streaming them, 100%. But we're going to try to keep up to date as much as possible through these various articles. Of course, we're talking about mainstream media. Things can be left out that are important for the true evaluation. But that was a great recommendation earlier from somebody in the chat talking about how I should reach out to Tony Ortega. Maybe I can get some insight from him. That'd be really interesting. So, Andy the Game Maker, also, thanks, brother, for another super chat. You should do a reaction to Kevin Spacey's video, Let Me Be Frank. I'm not familiar with that, although that sounds like Frank Underwood. Is that a reference to House of Cards? And I'm wondering, is that actually him, or is that a what's it called? Satire. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to check it out. Thanks, brother. And 40 Doherty, when do we get to meet Mr. Bites? Not anytime soon, y'all. We made an agreement when I got started with this YouTube life that his work would be his work and my work would be mine. So that's we don't I don't expect to see him anytime soon, because that's something that we wanted to maintain here. I don't want my work to be impacting his. So yeah, but otherwise you guys can, occasionally hear from some anecdotes and whatnot about him. But otherwise, also Kate Leslie, welcome to Bike Club. So happy to have you here, and welcome. And I hope that you'll join us on Friday for the members only live stream. Should be fun. And it'll be totally casual. I might be wearing a sweatshirt talking about all kinds of stuff. We'll see. So, but otherwise, thank you to everyone for the for the wonderful discussion. Great chat. I love seeing all of you guys in the chat, and keeping things respectful and interesting, and having disagreement from time to time, right? We can always disagree on things, but we want to do so in a way that is coming from reasoning, hopefully basing our thoughts on facts, and having at least good faith arguments for our stuff. That's really what we want at the end of the day, because disagreement, even though it's sometimes uncomfortable, sometimes it can be a little bit offensive, to another person to have a difference of opinion. If it is at least made in good faith and based off of, some kind of reasoning, some kind of evidence, that's what we want here, right? We want to make this place as warm and welcoming to all kinds of different ideas, so that we can ultimately come to some sense of truth with a capital T, right? So, and also, once again, thanks again to our wonderful mods in the chat. I think that you guys are doing such a fabulous job every single time. And I appreciate every single one of you. And thank you to everybody that was here for this live stream. So otherwise, tomorrow we've got a deep dive, going to go into Scientology again, and maybe with some more different kind of stuff than what we did on the last members only stream. So stay tuned. That'll be interesting. See you in the next video.